Do you think it's odd that he wanted ID for something that doesn't require ID?
It does require ID. Okay,
What's
so
that?
The officers were out there on a legal criminal trespass complaint, and it does require for that individual that they made contact with them to provide them ID.
Because he was committing a crime?
Huh? It was trespassing. Yes, she was trespassing.
Over a cheeseburger?
She was trespassing. Okay? I'm not going to argue with you or anybody else here. I'm just going to provide you the information.
Yeah.
So if you want to argue, this is the wrong forum to do it, okay? I'll provide you the information and answer your questions, but if you create argumentative, then we're going to end this.
Unfortunately, this is yet another chief of police who is absolutely wrong about the law. I'm not sure if he's just completely ignorant or trying to cover for his officers. I've seen both scenarios from numerous departments throughout the country, and neither would surprise me, but both absolutely infuriate me. This press conference was called by the chief 2 days after the bystander video of the arrest of LaTika Hancock went viral. She was arrested on January 16, 2023 at a McDonald's in Butler Township, Ohio, because Sergeant Todd Stanley and Officer Tim Zellers, just like Chief Porter, do not appear to know trespassing and identification laws, as well as the Fourth Amendment. I have also posted on this channel the complete multi-police camera linear timeline video of the entire incident. It is titled Exhibit A to Episode 1 and it is linked below. It will serve as the evidence for this discussion of facts and commentary. And based on that video, my findings for this incident are as follows. There was unnecessary and excessive force, ignorance and unprofessionalism, possible conspiracy to violate rights, malfeasance in the form of complacency and bias against the non-reporting party. In other words, the Butler Township Police Department appear to take action based solely on the word of a business or reporting party, without conducting an actual investigation. This is most likely a pattern or practice issue due to the level of comfortableness displayed by both officers. And most importantly, this incident proves that Chief Porter, Sergeant Stanley, and Officer Zellers are either severely undereducated or are willfully negligent. Now let's do what the three aforementioned law enforcement professionals did not do. Take 45 seconds to read and comprehend the Ohio ID and trespass laws. Ohio Revised Code Section 2921.29, Failure to disclose personal information. No person who is in a public place shall refuse to disclose the person's name, address, or date of birth when requested by a law enforcement officer who reasonably suspects either of the following. The person is committing, has committed, or is about to commit a criminal offense. Ohio Revised Code Section 2911.21, Criminal Trespass. No person without privilege to do so shall do any of the following. Knowingly enter or remain on the land or premises of another. So when Ms. Hancock was asked to leave McDonald's, her privilege to be there was in fact revoked. But trespassing is only committed if one refuses to leave or returns after being asked to leave. But here's the thing. Miss Hancock did leave. She was backing out of her parking spot as Sergeant Stanley arrived. But he stopped her and initiated contact. It should also be noted that the call for service was dispatched at 4:40 p.m. and Sergeant Stanley arrived at 4:43 p.m.
Hi, did you have a bad day inside?
No, sir. I went through the drive-thru earlier.
Okay.
She refused to take my dollar to give me 30 cents after I paid it for extra cheese.
Okay.
There was a young lady who was very nice, by the way, before I got introduced to this lady in the burgundy.
Okay.
She asked the lady in the burgundy shirt to remake my sandwich. She comes up to the desk, wanted me to pay her another 30 cents. So 49 plus 30 plus 30. For what when I'm not even getting enough pieces of cheese. You only put one on here when I already paid the 49 cents for the extra piece of cheese. So now you're charging me 60 cents more. So then she got an attitude because I asked her for a refund and called the police because she didn't want to give me back my money. And I told them I'm in a black truck and I'm waiting. Okay. She finally gave me the refund literally 8 seconds before I got in the car and started it up. The problem was all I wanted was to be remade. with an extra piece of cheese.
I completely
She
understand.
started screaming at me, and I'm just like, well, ma'am, she explained it to you. Why won't you go make it? Well, you need to pay me 30 cents. I said, the lady that just came and got the paper already took the 30 cents on top of the 49. Why would I give another 30 cents, which makes it 60 plus 49 cents?
So they've made you whole.
No.
They haven't made you
Well,
whole.
I mean, yeah, she gave me my money back, so I'm gonna go somewhere else. But
Okay.
the problem was, she should have just remade it like the lady asked her. I came all the way back here to get my sandwich. Obviously, I wanted to go home with it. I didn't understand where she got confused at after the lady already said, yeah, just go ahead and remake it, put a piece of cheese in the middle. She started getting all extra, wanting me to pay her again. No, ma'am, it doesn't work like that. I paid now 3 times for only 1 piece of cheese that I still didn't even get.
Okay.
So she gave me a refund. I'm leaving. She started screaming at me, telling me to have a good day and not to come back here. And I said, I won't.
So you didn't say anything. You was a complete angel.
I
Because
know,
I'm
I
getting
cussed her
information,
out.
you're getting disorderly in
I
the
sure
store.
did.
Okay, all right.
I did.
So here's what's going to happen. You've been made whole, right? You got your
I'm
money
leaving.
back.
You pulled up. I didn't
Yep.
want you to have to
So,
chase me
so
down
here's
the
what we're
street.
going to do. They want you trespass. They don't.
Who
listen,
cares?
Just listen. I know. It doesn't mean anything.
It's a McDonald's.
They don't
They
want
can't
you.
even
There's
do it
one on
right.
every corner.
Customers are right. Thank you.
So Miss Hancock voluntarily tells Sergeant Stanley her side of the disagreement. But she is not even required by law to speak to him, period. Especially since the only directives he and Officer Zellers are about to give Miss Hancock are related to trespassing. They do not provide any lawful orders or state any other claims against her other than she was required by law to provide her information for a trespass warning, which is completely false. Everything that happens next is completely unlawful.
Okay.
I won't come back
Does this
here.
car come back to you?
No, it does not.
Okay. Can I get a driver's license number or something from you, or name
No,
and date of
'cause
birth?
I don't have one.
Well, I'm going to issue a trespass notice, and I have to fill out a piece of paper.
I can care less
Okay.
what you're
I
gonna
just
do.
need some information.
No.
But I
She
do.
gave a description. You can use that, but no, sir.
So I'm filling out a paper.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay.
Fill it out.
It's going to have your information on it so that you can't come back on the property.
Who wants to? It's a McDonald's.
I understand
like you said,
that,
There's one on
but
that
I have to
corner.
serve you with a piece of
I'm
paper.
not about to give you my info. Sorry.
You are,
I just
because
won't
it's a
come back
crime
here.
if you don't.
No, it's not.
Because you're trespassing.
The crime is her being nasty and won't make my sandwich the way I paid for it. It's my money.
Okay.
That's nasty.
You're going to make it more difficult than it has to be.
If you arrest me, I promise you, you're gonna have a problem.
I won't have a problem.
Yes, you will.
No.
No.
I won't have a problem.
Not over a sandwich. Not over a sandwich.
All I want to do is give you a piece of paper.
You have
For
to
what?
identify
It's
yourself.
so many McDonald's out here. For what?
We're okay.
The rude ass bitch.
Now you're getting disorderly. Take it up to another level. Take it up to another level.
Yours down.
Stop.
I'm fine. I just want to fill out a piece of paper.
For what?
A trespass notice.
She refused to
Are
make.
you going to stop and listen? or
Who's
are you
gonna go in
holler?
there and make her remake my
If you don't
sandwich?
stop,
Nobody.
if you don't stop, you're going to end up going to jail. Stop.
Hancock, Hancock, write it down so I
Calm
can go.
down.
No, because you're not about to act like
No,
that over a sandwich
stop.
she didn't make right.
Stop. You don't need to go to jail over this.
Exactly.
Okay, so
That's
calm
what I'm
down.
saying. Like over a fucking sandwich?
You're making us your enemy.
I'm ready. I gave you my info.
No, you didn't.
Yes, I did. I said my
Calm
last name,
down.
Hancock, 3616. Damn. Over a
Miss-
fucking burger that she didn't
Miss-
even make right.
Miss-
That I traveled way far
Are you
for.
going to listen to me? Miss Hancock, what's your first name? The easiest thing to do is just give us your
For
info.
what?
We
Over a
give you a
fucking
trust.
sandwich.
We give you a piece of paper
For
and you
what?
don't come back.
No,
Then you're free
you
to
told me
leave.
I'm trespassed, so I'm not coming back.
So we have to
That's
serve you
my
with a
free
criminal
will.
trespass notice.
No, you don't.
Yes, by law
No,
we do.
you just want
okay,
to
then we're
because
going to
she
arrest
fucking
you.
called.
Then we're going to arrest
No,
you.
you're
for failing
not.
To identify.
No, you're
then
not.
identify yourself.
No.
Yes.
For what? Over a sandwich?
Ma'am, stop.
She didn't identify herself.
yourself or we'll have to arrest you. Now stop.
Over a fucking sandwich.
Yes,
No.
over a sandwich. So you're making a bad
There's
decision
kids
over.
missing every day though. But you
Ma'am?
coming for me over
Ma'am?
a burger? Y'all,
Ma'am?
it's too much.
You're not leaving
much.
until you identify yourself.
Bruh, if you don't get the...
You better calm down.
I'm not giving you nothing. I already said it.
Okay, you're under arrest. Put
No,
your hands
I'm
behind your back.
not.
Put
No,
your
I'm
hands
not.
behind your back.
No, I'm
You
not.
are under arrest for failure to identify.
Don't
Put
touch
your
me.
hands.
Okay, my last
behind-
name is Hancock. I
put
already
your
told
hands
you that.
behind your back.
No, I don't want
Put
to.
your
for real.
hands-
It's LaTika. I'm telling you. Okay, I'm saying okay.
Put your hands behind your back. You're gonna get
I said
tased.
okay. I said
Put
okay.
your hands behind
Wait.
your back.
Sir, wait. I
Put
said
your
okay.
hands-
Okay.
Stop.
I'm gonna get down. Can I please
Up against the
just have my
car.
arm?
Up against the
Well,
car.
I'm twisted.
Up against.
Ow.
Up against the
Turn
car.
around, face the car. Oh my God. Why would you press me?
Miss Hancock denying both Sergeant Stanley and Officer Zeller's the ad nauseum request for her identification is completely lawful. But they then do what an unreasonable amount of peace officers do every single day in this country. They compound their mistakes, they escalate an already unlawful encounter, and allow their personal feelings to drive their actions. I will dissect the arrest itself shortly, but first, Sergeant Stanley and Officer Zellers never even spoke with the McDonald's employees prior to engaging with Miss Hancock, which means they did not even conduct an investigation. Their motivation was solely based on the call for service that stated Miss Hancock was, quote-unquote, yelling at employees and they, quote-unquote, wanted her trespassed. The officers had no clue to what degree, if any, Miss Hancock was being disorderly. It is certainly not illegal to have a disagreement with or yell at the employees at a McDonald's. And those are the only facts Sergeant Stanley and Officer Zellers had prior to arresting Miss Hancock. Sergeant Stanley did not obtain any formal statements from the employees describing Miss Hancock's so-called disorderly behavior. He just simply put their names as witnesses to a trespass. And neither officer looked at any security video footage. So they had no way to even affirm that Miss Hancock's behavior rose to the level of any sort of criminality. And Miss Hancock acknowledging to Sergeant Stanley that she was not, quote-unquote, an angel when dealing with the McDonald's employees is not enough for the officer to make any criminal determinations. Sergeant Stanley and Officer Zellers approached this situation with all deference to McDonald's, and from the beginning treated Miss Hancock as a criminal. That is precisely what is not supposed to happen. Police should always be impartial and execute their duties in accordance with the U.S. and state constitution, as well as state and local laws. This is the exact sentiment to which every peace officer in this country swears an oath to. This video is not an explicit defense of Miss Hancock, and there are no ulterior motives. The narrative is not anti-this or pro-that. The only narrative in this video is that too many law enforcement professionals in this country lack the knowledge and or desire to execute their duties in accordance with the law. Remember when Chief Porter said this?
Do you think it's odd that he wanted ID for something that doesn't require ID?
It does require ID, okay?
What's that?
The officers were out there on a legal criminal trespass complaint, and it does require for that individual that they made contact with them to provide them ID.
Because he was committing a crime?
Huh? It was trespassing. Yes, she was trespassing.
Over a cheeseburger?
She was trespassing.
1 minute and 15 seconds later, this is what he says to another journalist.
Did the officers have a choice to charge her with trespassing, or like who is that up to? The business, or is it up to?
The business requested that she be.
And so they had to do it?
So yes, the business requested that she be charged with, or not be charged, but that she be given a formal warning for trespass.
A formal warning for trespassing? It does not exist. That is not a lawful procedure under the identification or trespassing law. When someone is asked to leave a property and they did not refuse to leave, the police cannot do anything but allow them to leave. They cannot require any information from the person being asked to leave because being asked to leave is not a crime. Therefore, the Butler Township Police Department is not in compliance with the enforcement of trespass and ID laws, and they are also committing a Fourth Amendment rights violation by requiring identification from someone that did not commit a crime. Chief Porter said 4 times in a row that Miss Hancock was criminally trespassing, but she was never charged with criminal trespassing. She was only charged with failure to ID and resisting arrest. I can only assume she was never charged with trespassing because they know she wasn't trespassing. And it definitely wasn't because they went easy on her or anything, because moments after the arrest, Sergeant Stanley can be heard on his body-worn camera rattling off the charges with glee to the McDonald's manager and stating,
disorderly, you name it, we're going to go with it.
Yeah.
Or not be charged, but that she be given a formal warning for trespass.
Okay. And that includes the paper that they need to do?
Okay, so what you'll see is one of the documents, do we have the calls for service on?
I can pull it up.
Okay, we'll bring up the calls for service sheet where the actual...
They were not successful in bringing up the call for service report page that I've already showed you, and the camera stays on this screen most of the time the chief is speaking. I will put the call for service page back up again.
Business told dispatch that they wanted the person trespassed from the property, and that requires a formal trespass form.
Wow. No, Chief, that is wrong. The fact that a property owner is requesting for someone to leave their property absolutely does not require a trespass form.
Has their name filled out on it, and then they're given a formal. And that's done customarily.
Wait. Customarily? So that means it's not required by law? Well, I know it's not required by law, but clearly the chief feels as though he can circumvent civil rights with paperwork. And listen to him talking. He can barely form a complete sentence. I'm not sure if he's just a very poor public speaker, or if he is just trying to get the best words he can out of his mouth to make sure that he doesn't actually come off as an ignorant tyrant. Again, the crime of trespassing is not committed unless the person refuses to leave or returns. And no one is required to identify themselves if there was no crime.
And because they are out there on a disorderly complaint, which is a violation of the law, it requires them to identify themselves.
What? Because they are out on a disorderly complaint, which is a violation of the law, it requires them to identify themselves. No, Chief, it doesn't. A person is not required to identify themselves because a McDonald's employee told a dispatcher that a customer yelled at them and they want them to leave. You can't stand there at a press conference and say after the fact that Ms. Hancock had to ID for a disorderly conduct investigation when the officer's directives to Ms. Hancock were only related to requiring ID for trespass warning, which in and of itself was unlawful. Perhaps if the chief didn't threaten to take his ball and go home, one of the other journalists could have questioned him on that. I cannot believe that this is a chief of police. He somehow got to this position with this illogical and unlawful thought process without anyone realizing that he is unfit and completely ignorant. Sergeant Stanley and Officer Zellers did not even conduct an investigation for disorderly conduct. If that is why they were there, why didn't they? And I think it is very strange that Officer Zellers said this to Miss Hancock.
Look at me. Look at me.
didn't even do that.
Look at me. We're not McDonald's security.
But that is exactly how they behaved. And it appears to be right in line with how the chief responded to this follow-up question to his earlier ignorant statement.
So that's not just because the business is requesting it. It is not as simple as she can just leave. The business is asking your department to
Correct.
normally criminally trespass her.
Correct.
You know, by the chief saying this, he is saying that the criminal determination can be made by the person who calls the police. I probably do not need to tell you how potentially dangerous and demonstrably wrong that is. See, all this nonsense, this goes on every single day all over the country, without exaggeration. People are unlawfully detained, questioned, searched, arrested, and brutalized for nothing. That is why I invested so much time and money into bringing these incidents to your attention. All you have to do is create some simple Google alerts and you will see I am not incorrect. Now let's take a look at the arrest itself. As you already saw, the interaction starts with Sergeant Stanley listening to Miss Hancock's side of the cheese dispute for 2 minutes. And after that, Sergeant Stanley and Officer Zellers mistakenly believe that they already have a lawful reason to require her ID. And when asked, Miss Hancock lawfully refuses to provide her ID. Sergeant Stanley and Officer Zellers request her information ad nauseum for about 2 minutes. And then Officer Zellers initiates the arrest.
Okay, you're under arrest.
No,
Put your
I'm
hands behind your
not.
back.
So Miss Hancock is pulling away and saying no, both of which I'm sure are very typical when arresting just about anyone. She's not making any threatening moves or saying anything threatening. Officer Zellers is not doing anything productive to facilitate the arrest with having only one free hand. He is just haphazardly holding on to her and is not able to effectively initiate any offensive measures. Sergeant Stanley, after missing her left arm, then tries to grab her coat hood. And then Miss Hancock does what can only be called a pick and roll like she was Steph Curry. And it almost seems like because of that, Sergeant Stanley and Officer Zellers' next action is fueled by frustration and ego. As Miss Hancock is backing up against the cruiser, waving her hands in surrender, the officers miss an opportunity to de-escalate, and then they overcorrect. First by Officer Zellers drawing his taser, and then he and Sergeant Stanley issuing conflicting commands and physical holds. Sergeant Stanley tries to take her to the ground. She's worried about her shoe, and then she thinks they want her on the ground. Then they both finally tell her the same command, but because of the way they are holding her, she cannot turn to do so. And just as she is finished saying as much, Sergeant Stanley punches her in the face 3 times.
Up against the car! Up against the car!
Later on, when Officer Zellers is talking to Miss Hancock in his car, he tells her this.
I would much rather just keep physically fighting somebody than tasing them. You don't know how bad tasing is.
That's interesting, isn't it? And clearly a lie. So I've already explained that nearly every aspect of this interaction was unlawful. And in these next couple of clips, you'll see that Sergeant Stanley and Officer Zellers may have actually come to that same conclusion, either partially or completely. 22 minutes after the arrest, Sergeant Stanley has this exchange with Officer Zellers.
What do you want to? Resisting, failure to identify.
I don't know if failure to identify is what you want. You fail to provide information to avoid a criminal complaint. Take a look at what you got.
So Sergeant Stanley just said, I don't know if failure to identify is what you want. But isn't that the exact reason why they grabbed her, punched her, handcuffed her, and put her in the car? Is it not? So they did all of that, and they're not even sure what to charge her with. And what was the sergeant talking about? Failure to give her information for a criminal complaint? That's the same thing. There's no separate law for that. That is the ID law. And what does it mean when he says, take a look at what you got? Is he leaving Officer Zellers to sit there and figure out what to charge her with? I mean, this is technically Sergeant Stanley's arrest. Honestly, I don't even understand this incompetence. Then 5 minutes later, they have this conversation.
I need to get everything out of her pockets, everything, and readjust her cuffs.
No, just get her down to jail.
Just get her down there and do it there?
Yeah, we're not catered to her after what she did.
No, I just mostly just want to get everything out. Make sure I don't look dumb and going to jail and miss something on her.
I don't want to get her out again and have to get her back in the car. So you tell them that she followed us the whole way, and that we didn't want to get her back out. So you can pat her down in the Sally Port, which you can do anyway.
Go hold you for it. Go hold her for it.
Failure to identify and resisting.
I'm gonna have a traffic ticket since I find the ticket.
Give me one?
Yeah, give me one. Let's talk for a minute.
So toward the end of this brief conversation, Officer Zellers tells the sergeant he is going to go with failure to ID and resisting. And as per usual in these situations, they turned off their body-worn cameras so they can discuss the arrest off the record. I don't know what Butler Township's body-worn camera policy is, but that's moot, because no department should be allowed to choose when they do and do not record. Ultimately, it's going to need to be mandated by state laws so that the body-worn cameras can remain on for the entirety of an incident. There are plenty of laws that already exist that give police departments the ability to legally redact anything that is private or not for the public. But obviously something that is never recorded is never recorded. When the body-worn cameras are turned off, their conversation is partially picked up by the sergeant's in-car microphone. It's difficult to hear everything they are saying, but they are clearly discussing the arrest. And 60 seconds into their conversation, Miss Hancock can overhear them. And what she hears appears to remove all doubt as to the officer's intentions in turning off the body-worn cameras.
I've been through this once with you and everybody. She left one updated code back soon and you everything guy didn't steal. We were
Cloudy and breezy is bringing my kids to the low of 73. Tuesday will be mostly cloudy, breezy, and cool with a high of 54. For storm team 2, a meteorologist, Amy Drew. Miami Valley Gaming on January 28th for your chance to grab a share of $60,000 in cash.
She was actually resisting. I mean, second she started pulling away. That's when she started having more resistance. Because, I mean, she was told that. Got back to the house, pulled away. I mean, at that point, don't leave so I can track her.
That's crazy how they were just standing over here talking about what they were going to say. Tell the truth. You don't have to talk about what you're going to say. I hope they put his name on my paper because I want to know what they're doing.
No officer can conduct a perfect arrest every time, and most do not get the scrutiny of a play-by-play. But more important than how this arrest was executed is the mindset behind the officers doing the arresting. This cannot happen anymore. Sergeant Stanley and Officer Zellers have 38 years of experience between them. So for starters, this arrest should have never have happened. But with that said, there is no reason why they could not have arrested her by just focusing on providing cohesive verbal commands and using proper control and hold techniques, instead of miscommunication and sloppy, anger-filled aggression. If they cannot do that with someone like Miss Hancock or the average man or woman without being ego-driven and using excessive force, then they truly do not deserve that badge. To me, it is abundantly clear that this is just lazy and impatient policing. The unnecessary and excessive force in this incident is quite blatant. Unnecessary because the arrest was unlawful, and excessive because the mild resistance exhibited by Miss Hancock did not require the drawing of a taser or punches to the face. There are several incidents from both Sergeant Stanley and Officer Zellers of conduct unbecoming. From Sergeant Stanley bragging about his use of force to the paramedics at McDonald's, to Officer Zellers' persistent demeaning of Miss Hancock. The majority of these can all be seen in the full incident video. The possibility of a conspiracy to violate rights is going to have to be examined closely by the FBI and the U.S. Attorney General. But based on the incident body-worn camera and in-car video, not only does it appear that the officers needed to discuss this arrest off the record to get their story straight, but the chief's ignorance on display at the press conference can only be a severe lack of knowledge or purposeful misdirection. The malfeasance on display in this incident is very worrisome. The overall manner in which this call for service was executed was, as previously mentioned, as if the Butler Township Police Department was a private security company, or as if the determination of criminal activity was already established either solely by officer intuition or the reporting party, all of which goes against everything law enforcement is supposed to be. And relating to undereducated or willful negligence, I do not even know how to begin characterizing this. How these law enforcement professionals appear to both not know the very laws they are charged with enforcing, and at the same time try and spin the situation to make it look as though they are not wrong, is absolutely perplexing. One can only hope that the proverbial who knew what and when will eventually come to light. As of the date of release for this video, the most recent information on this case is this. In addition to the Ohio Attorney General's Bureau of Criminal Investigation assisting with this investigation, the FBI and the United States Attorney General have also initiated an investigation in this incident. On the Message from the Chief page on the Butler Township Police website, Chief Porter mentions that when he was hired in 2016, the department was on the cusp of extreme financial cuts and faced the possibility of being disbanded with services being outsourced to the Sheriff's Department. If this unequivocal deficit in the department's education and morals cannot be fixed, then having the Sheriff's Department take over is quite possibly the best solution. Because with incidents like this that are going to cost the township hundreds of thousands of dollars in lawsuits, it's only going to take a couple of those before the police department once again becomes unsustainable. I will be keeping a close eye on this case and Butler Township Police on the whole, and I will provide updates and additional stories as they happen. A very big thank you to Gem City News for assisting with the press kit for this incident. Please assist me in thanking him by heading over to his channel and subscribing. And if you liked or did not like this presentation, please let me know in the comments section. And please subscribe and hit the notification bell to make sure you do not miss episode 2. And thank you for watching.
We're going to end this.